We're in downtown Westminster along the old Western Maryland main line. You can see the main line has been well maintained. After Western Maryland, there was Chessie system. At some point the line got surplused out, became part of the Maryland Midland system, which now I think is run by Genesee and Wyoming. Good sidings gone bad. Stormwater management along the main line. And the last few remaining telegraph poles. The railroad scene is constantly changing. We drove up to Westminster, Maryland to pick up some model railroader magazines someone was giving away. And on the way back we found this really cool unloading platform, team track setup. Thought you'd want to see. This is a great idea for a space on your model railroad. You can see the siding here closest to the main line's been pulled up. The platform itself is wedge-shaped to fill the space between the two tracks. Looks like it's cinder block construction. I'm guessing there's dirt underneath, a dirt fill, and then a concrete pad on top. The total height is about 5 cinder blocks above ground. So that's going to be, I don't know, maybe 3.5 feet. The on-off ramp is about 25 feet long. The platform is about 15 feet wide at the narrow end. And about 20 feet wide at the wide end. And the sides are about 20 feet long where they parallel the railroad. And this end is about 6 cinder blocks high. And that should be everything you need to put together a model for your railroad. I guess it's time to leave. In honor of the trip to Westminster, I dug out my old Maryland Midland baseball cap. It's Tuesday night. Welcome back to Train Club. A team track and unloading platform is one of the best uses of space on a model railroad. All you need is a switch, a little bit of room, and some sort of platform. This one I built out of strip wood from plans that were in a mainline modeler magazine, although I shortened it to a single-ended version. The team track fits in an unused corner of the railroad. It doesn't take any space at all. There's room here for a 2-track setup similar to the one in Westminster. And here's another team track. This is also a single track setup with a concrete pad. There's no unloading platform. It looks like we just got delivery of one of those useless steel clips that go on the top of Athearn blue box diesel electric motors. This is an old model railroad. It was probably built in the late 1980s or early 1990s. I'm in the process of revitalizing the passenger terminal. It's got 5 tracks. And when I got it, all of the wiring had been removed. So it's a lot of work bringing it back into operating condition. Most of the track switches are old Atlas Mark IIs with the riveted points. And the track was painted so a lot of the points don't have good electrical contact. You can see this one I've had to remove the rivet and put in a rail joiner. It's easy to find dead spots in the track if you get yourself one of these 12-volt circuit testers. They're available at auto parts stores and tool companies like Harbor Freight. I mean, you just string this out. It's got a probe and a crocodile clip. Switch your layout over to DC and set the power to about 1/3. Then hook the crocodile clip to one rail and run the probe down the other, and you'll see it lights up. So you can run it through complicated switch work and look for dead spots. Especially with these old Mark II. See, the frog is not powered. Closure rail is. And this point's powered now, but it wasn't before I soldered in a jumper wire. And just reverse the connections to run down the other rail. You can see this point is dead. The main rail is okay. I'll have to jumper that point also. Fixing frogs that have lost their power on a Mark II turnout is not an easy thing. The point itself appears to be aluminum, and it's hard to solder to aluminum. It can be done, but not nearly as easily as soldering to nickel, silver, or copper, or brass. But there are options. You can also make points out of nickel silver rail and install those. But if you find it absolutely necessary to paint your track, I recommend you stay away from this rivet, this metal plate that runs underneath that joins the stock rail, the closure rail, and the point. It's just a pressure fit. There's no soldered connections, and they are unreliable, especially when you get glue or paint down in this area. You've been warned. I've scraped the paint off around this plate, this nickel silver plate that sits underneath the point. There's a nickel silver rivet that goes through this aluminum point. It's crimped over on the other side. It has to be loose enough for the point to move, but it's supposed to make electrical contact, so that's not a very good design. Now when this is actually installed in the turnout, it's in this orientation. Let me slide it back into the switch so you can see how it works. It sits in there like this. If I flip it over, you can see where the metal tab bridges the stock rail and the closure rail. And it's just supposed to make electrical contact with pressure from the assembly process. This is actually underneath a tie, so you have no access to it unless you cut away plastic. So that was a flaw in the Mark II design that they've actually corrected that in newer versions of the turnout. But enough about track switches for now. Let's run some trains. Low-hanging coupler. Put this one in the bad order pile.
The Director's Special, first train to leave the revamped passenger terminal. Here's a 3x3 matrix with some thoughts on building a better model railroad. For best performance, you need good locomotives running on good track. If you have marginal locomotives, they'll also run on good track. And if you have good locomotives, they'll run on marginal track. Bad locomotives won't run on any track. And no locomotive will run on bad track. But that leaves you with this one square in the center. Marginal locomotives running on marginal track. That's where you're going to experience problems, but the trains still run. And you can use this place to find and fix your track and your locomotives. Don't let that go to waste.